We're tenting tonight on the old campground. Give us a song to cheer our weary hearts, a song of hope, and friends we love so dear. Many are the hearts that are weary tonight, wishing for the war to cease. Many are the hearts looking for the right to see the dawn of peace.
Okay, we're ready to start if you want to take your seats.
Yep. Okay. Let me just put the phone on silent. I've done this a couple of times before.
All right, my name is Lee Lassane. I'm with the Sons of Union Veterans of the Civil War. We march, we give presentations to schools, work with the junior ROTC. We clean, we reset, and we obtain new markers for Civil War veterans. That's our main job. We do everything we can to remember the boys in blue. The Civil War was fought from 1861 to 1865. 2.5 million participated for the Union. 25% of those were casualties. Of those, there's 179,000 African Americans who served for the Union. 19,000 of those were lost that we know of. There's 40,000 POWs on each side. 30,000 of those died from disease. We're here today to honor James Henry Cleggett, who served the Union well. He helped found the London branch of the American Civil War Veterans, and who was buried here in a previously unmarked grave. 2 years ago, I was put in contact with a young lady from London who was eager to get a headstone for Mr. Cleggett. I've been involved in obtaining headstones for many Civil War veterans over the years. And so I got contacted. I'm very familiar with the process. I submitted the necessary paperwork, and we had it delivered here. Lincoln Cemetery was very gracious in helping to install that at no charge. And here we are today. I'll be introducing various people here today who are all interested in history, the military, and the Civil War. First, we'll bring in the flags courtesy of the 29th U.S. Colored Troops and Commander Luther Johnson. Go. Good. Huh. Huh. Right. Three. What? Mark. Now the commander of our camp, Camp 2, Philip H. Sheridan, Sons of Union Veterans of the Civil War, and current Senior Vice Commander of the department, Michael Zafran.
Please join me in singing our national anthem. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Michael. And now we'll have the invocation by our national chaplain and our camp chaplain, Jerome Kowalski.
Please be seated if you can. If there's an empty seat, please get into it. We have something very much in common with this man. We were all made by the same supreme being, the creator, the maker of all that is, the higher power, God. We are all made in that image. We have that in common with him. And what would the creator make that he didn't love? He loves all of us, no matter what our race, denomination, religious background. It's hard to sometimes believe that he loves the other guys, but he loves them just as much as he loves you. And we've got to think about that. This man is an example. He served. He did what he was supposed to do, and you're supposed to do the same. This is a benediction. We're asking the Almighty's blessing on what we do here today, as well as our families, and that his soul may rest in peace. If you agree with me, say amen. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain. Now we'll have a few words from our cemetery representative, Liz Hill.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. Close to the microphone, ma'am.
Okay. Pardon?
Close to the microphone.
Closer? Closer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's our honor and privilege to be able to serve in the memory and legacy of those who served to protect our freedoms and to advance our society to where it is today. We've had the privilege of not only providing our services for Mr. Cleggett, but also for another Civil War veteran, James Harvey, who was brought to our attention many years ago after I first arrived at Lincoln, that he was also in an unmarked grave to the west of us in section 14. I had the privilege to design his headstone, which was quite an honor of my lifetime, and I'm now 73 years old, so that was quite a privilege to be able to serve him, and also to be present and accounted for and share in this event for something that was so long overdue to honor James H. Cleggett. We're here to be of service to every race, creed, and color, no matter what distinction you have in life, and we look forward to serving everyone for every service, every family, every time. We were actually very blessed today that it's not 95 degrees out here, and the weather cooperated. We don't have any rain, and so let's all celebrate James Henry Cleggett. We have a wonderful program put together by Mr. Westlake, and I'm looking forward to hearing and absorbing everything that I can find out about him. I do have the book.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm in the process of reading it.
I apologise for the typos.
Oh, don't worry about it. You should see mine. So we're going to move forward with the program. Thank you very much once again for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. She mentioned a book. Our main speaker here, Gina Denham, has written a book about James Cleggett and another gentleman who served on a ship during the war that got captured, and then they were POWs. So we'll hear from that in a little bit. This cemetery has quite a few military interments. Not just these two Civil War veterans, but I understand there are some more in unmarked graves that we will look into the future to rectify that. I want to also ask any veterans to stand up at this time. We can acknowledge your service. Thank you very much. Now let's hear from Fred Bellado, the mayor of Blue Island.
Thank you all. On behalf of the City of Blue Island, I want to thank you for choosing our own Lincoln Cemetery to honor this man and the many Civil War veterans he symbolizes. Those who know me know I'm a history buff. Prior to becoming mayor and a school administrator, I taught 12 years U.S. history, especially Civil War, at Thornton Township High School in Harvey, Illinois, where I still work today as an administrator over a social studies department. James Cleggett was born in Freeman, 1845, New York. The early parts of James' life could be described as ordinary, but James Cleggett would come of age in extraordinary times as his country broke into civil war. I'm going to be very brief because I know there's someone following with a more intense bio. By his 18th birthday, James had enlisted in the Union Army and seen combat. By his 19th birthday, he was a POW in Texas, where he would survive for over 2 years in conditions most of us here would not survive for more than a week. By his 20th birthday, James Cleggett would witness the liberation of all enslaved people in Texas by military order on June 19th, 1865, now commemorated as Juneteenth, which we just passed, effectively bringing slavery to an end in the United States. In the years after the war, James became an entrepreneur in Chicago and throughout the Midwest before moving to London, England, where he became part of a fraternal group of Civil War veterans living in England. And the part that I want to highlight, that I noticed in his biography that caught my attention, was that James Cleggett was highly thought of among his fellow veterans for his personality and his stories of triumph through the prison camp. But in addition, he had become somewhat of an expert in managing the bureaucracy of government pension office and would use that knowledge to assist fellow veterans in getting through the red tape to get access to their benefits. And I'm sure the times haven't changed much. As we honor this man, let's remember if he were here today, he would likely be helping a veteran today manage the same bureaucracy in government, be it Iraq, Afghanistan, helping soldiers get the benefits and care they deserve. It is important that we memorialize James Cleggett not only for the life he lived and the service he gave, because it serves as a single voice from our past that speaks for the thousands of black soldiers born free in the North who enlisted, took up arms, and marched south towards an enemy who they fully knew would enslave them if captured. Let his memorial be a memorial to those enduring legacy of bravery and service to the cause of freedom. Thank you again for joining me in historic Blue Island, Illinois, and I'm honored to be here.
Thank you very much. And from the Robbins Museum, we have Tyrone Haymore.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for being here today. And I wasn't expecting to say anything. I was just going to be present, but since they want me to say something, I will. And what I really want to say is thank you to this post for recognizing the Civil War soldier from Robbins, who you'll see right over there is 2 balloons. When you leave here, you see 2 balloons over there. They put this gorgeous headstone on the man from Robbins, Mr. James Harvey, who was a Civil War soldier, and he was featured in a number of papers and magazines because I think he was one of only 5 that was living at the time, and it was just amazing, and we're really grateful. And I'm glad they used their money to do it because we didn't have the money to put that kind of a headstone up there. And but he didn't have a headstone, but his wife is there next to him as well. And that's another nice thing they do too. They honor the wives of these famous Civil War soldiers. So I'm grateful to be here on behalf of the village of Robbins and our community. Robbins is one of the most historic black communities. In fact, it's the it's the 6th oldest black community in the whole United States. And we have an incredible history that includes not only Civil War people, but people who did some things that I can't even go into now. It would take too long. But visit our museum. It's a free museum. We're at 139th and Lawndale Avenue. We open every Saturday or by special appointment. So thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And from the African American Museum in Joliet, we have Luther Johnson.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. You know, I don't know what else to say. The mayor stole my thunder. He gave the other history. So I was told I had to prepare a message for about 2 hours. And I didn't think that was the truth. So I prepared like 2 minutes. So I didn't think that was the truth. As he said, my name is Luther Johnson. I'm the owner and founder of History on Wheels, a mobile museum, and we travel the country talking about the roles that African Americans played in all great wars and all conflicts. We currently are opening a museum in Joliet, the African Descendants Historical Military Museum, and it's going to feature just that. All the monuments and all the artifacts in that museum is going to be dedicated to those who served and fought. So, what can't I say about Mr. Claggett? That is what I want to say. I've written some here, and I'll read a little bit of it, and I won't go in because I did not know that the author would be here, and she would probably tell you more about him than I ever could read in that book or on the internet. So, but it is an honor to speak about him today. He's a remarkable individual who played a significant role in the American Civil War, and not only was dedicated to the Union and the Navy, but also he was a prominent figure, as she would tell you, in the London branch of the Civil War veterans. Mr. Claggett served on a vessel named the U.S. Morning Light. He was considered a landsman. From my research, he was someone that should have been given a better title because he was quite educated. However, he was not. He was given what they called a job called a landsman, which was a typically inexperienced sailor who performed various duties on that ship, learning the ropes, literally learning the ropes. As time went on, that position became a crucial part in maintaining the daily operation of that vessel. So not only was it a not important position, but it became a crucial part. The U.S. Morning Light was a Union naval vessel tasked with controlling the ports of the Confederate. This ship played a crucial role in the Union strategy to suffocate the Confederate supply lines and maintain control over marine routes. The Morning Light was involved in several naval engagements. Unfortunately, it was captured and Mr. Claggett became a prisoner of war. Now, being a black man and a prisoner of war during that time was not a good thing. He suffered hardship unimaginable, and some of us could not imagine the things that the African Americans and the men of color back then went through. Mr. Claggett, however, he survived that, and he was, while in jail, he had a camaraderie with his other sailors. It became strong, and it continued that after the end of the war. Mr. Claggett was profound. He eventually moved to London, and when he moved to London, he was involved in the London branch of American Civil War veterans, and he worked to preserve the memories and contributions of those who he has served with. His involvement in this group and his dedication honoring the legacies of his fellow veterans. In conclusion, because I wrote a lot, but I can't wait to hear the meat and potatoes. It's just whetting your appetite a little bit. I'm just whetting your appetite. In conclusion, James H. Claggett exemplifies the spirit and dedication and the sacrifice of those who fought, of black men that fought in the Army and in the Navy during the American Civil War. His contributions to the veteran community highlight a life of commitment to duty, honor, and respect. James Claggett and many like him have a legacy that will live on and continue to inspire future generations. And if he were here to say, I would say a few words. I would say, well done, my good and faithful servant, and thank you for your service. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we really can't complain about this wind. It's keeping the temperature down. All right, we're ready for our main speaker. Gina Denham is the author of The Landsman and the Lieutenant, which has quite a bit about James Claggett in it. She's also written other books, one about her great-grandfather, who served in the Civil War as well. Gina?
I apologise for my English accent. Sometimes you say water, I say water. Anyhow, it occurred to me that tomorrow is James Cleggett's birthday. He was born June 24th, 1845. And what I want to do, if possible, Lee, is just introduce, so I'm the Honourable Secretary of Descendants of the London branch of American Civil War veterans. And Stuart over there is our Vice President. Now, he's American born, so you should be able to understand him. So I was going to ask Stuart, who's going to, our President, Darren Rawlins, couldn't be here today. And so I've asked Stuart if he would say what Darren wanted to say to you. So if he could do that, and then I'll carry on, if that's okay, Lee.
Thank you. So this is for Darren Rawlins, who could not be here, not because of spirit, but because of distance, and he's on a different continent. Honored guests, I'm sorry I could not be here today. As the co-founder of Monuments for UK Veterans of the American Civil War Association and president of Descendants of London Branch of the US Civil War Veterans, I would like to send my apologies for not being with you in person. I want to thank everyone who has been involved in organizing this dedication, including Lee, the SUVCW, and cemetery staff. Having experience of the application process of official burial markers, I know a lot of hard work goes behind the scenes to get to the point where we can dedicate a veteran. I applaud your efforts to the point where you are today, a dedication ceremony. Additionally, I'd like to give recognition to my Vice President, Stuart Stephanie, who is here with you today. Stuart has also put in a lot of work behind the scenes, not just concerning this dedication, but in designing and creating our plaque honoring all veterans of the Civil War who died in the UK. The plaque is propped over against the headstone over there. Not all know, but the sailor depicted in the sculpture was actually based on James Claggett. Knowing all that we knew of James, we felt that was an appropriate act of eternal homage. Lastly, thanks to James himself for your service to the cause of liberty,
for the hardships and losses you experienced, and for the services to others too. Thank you, everyone. I hope you all have a great day.
Thank you, Stuart. Yeah, I just want to quickly, off script, give a voice to the 650 American Civil War veterans who lie in the soil of England, who are often forgotten from the narrative of the American Civil War. And I will share, whilst there's no hierarchy of loss, you know, my misery is no worse than your misery, etc. And of the few African American veterans who are buried in England, their story is a sorry story. And I'm going to explain a little bit why James Cleggett is so important to me, and why I kind of travelled just on a whim 3,988 miles to be here today. Hopefully I'm going to be back for dinner tonight. Okay, so my name is Gina Denham, and I'm the Honourable Secretary of Descendants of the London Branch of American Civil War Veterans. I'm really proud to be here today alongside Stuart, who's the Vice President of our association, as we pay homage to a former member of the London Branch. And thank you for allowing me to be part of this auspicious gathering today. And I want to extend my gratitude to all who have attended and have been involved in the acquisition of the burial marker that has been erected here to honour James Henry Cleggett, in particular Lee, PH Sheridan Camp No. 2, SUVCW, and staff at Lincoln Cemetery. Now, my interest in James started when I learnt he was the 11th member of the original group of London Branch of American Civil War veterans. The 8th member was my great-grandfather, George Denham. He served in the 111th Pennsylvania Volunteers and also on the USS Chickasaw. And as you kind of probably worked out, he came back to England. So I feel bound to him because of the bonds of comradeship that James forged with George and other veterans more than 100 years ago in London. I feel an absolute debt that I have to come here to say my respects to James and say thank you. So when I discovered 2 years ago that James lay in an unmarked grave, I sought the help of comrades here in the United States to rectify that injustice. James connected me with many people here, and he set in motion many aspects of our work in England to honour other UK-based Civil War veterans. In fact, it's thanks to James that we have that monument that you see there. Friendships have grown, and therefore it's really wonderful to see the efforts of such unsung heroes have borne through. Such endeavours address a century of unfinished business as we gather to honour James with the marker that stands here today. The London Branch of American Civil War veterans were not members of the Grand Army of the Republic, and they were an extraordinary group of men. And whilst the Grand Army of the Republic sought to look after each other, there were no such Civil War veteran organisations in England. Veterans and their families had to fend for themselves, alone and disconnected from the country once served. The Grand Army tried to charter a post in Oldham, Lancashire in 1909, but they just couldn't find anybody willing to serve as a commander of the post. A year later, in 1910, a Civil War veteran and missionary in London called John Davis, who was one of the sole survivors of the USS Tulip explosion, decided to form an organisation for the mutual benefit of ageing bluecoats he found living in straitened circumstances. Many were impoverished, living in workhouses, etc., and were really struggling. And so he wrote to 80 veterans living in the city and proposed they join his little band for mutual benefit. 60 men, including my great-great-grandfather and James Cleggett, answered his call. The organisation was formed on September the 20th, 1910, beneath an old railway arch in Bermondsey, South London, which is a short walk from Tower Bridge and the River Thames. The sound of 25 veterans jabbering and telling their Civil War stories must have been a sight to behold 50 years after the Civil War. It was a groundbreaking, historic moment because such numbers had never gathered before in London or anywhere else in the United Kingdom. James' place in the organisation was incredibly important. He was revered by his comrades because of the knowledge he gained navigating the pension process. He had honed his skills over several decades, having first applied in 1871. And sadly, the size of his pension file, a copy of which I've got here today, is indicative of the prejudice he experienced once his services to the Union were no longer required. James' life has always fascinated and saddened me, and the more I learnt about him, he felt more like a family member to me than just a man who served in the Civil War. James to me is my brother, my father, a grandfather, and someone who has shared personal experiences of his life that few others have known. I probably know more about him than any person alive, and for that reason I resolved to chronicle his experiences in a book called The Landsman and Lieutenant. The book follows his story from cradle to this graveside, and as my personal monument to you, James. He's such an important person to me, which is why I came here today in the spirit of fraternity, charity and loyalty to personally pay my respects in fellowship with all of you here, which also is family for this day. Time prohibits a full account. I hope you're not thinking, get on with it, Gina. But I want to shine some lights on parts of his life to give him a voice too, to say what I think he wants me to say to you. So he joined the Union Navy on March 12, 1862, just 16 years of age, and he enlisted in New York. And I never know why he chose to join. He didn't have to join. He went on board the USS Morning Light with the rank of a landsman, a man of the sea. And as you've heard, he could have taken on a better rank. And the injustice, there was another London Branch veteran called John Taplin, who was given a white mariner, who was given a more enhanced rank. On January 18th, 1863, the Morning Light was involved in blockading duties down in Sabine Pass, Texas. 3 days later, on January 21st, the vessel was attacked by two Confederate cotton-clad steamers called the Josiah Bell and Uncle Ben, with the support of artillery and Texas infantry. The resultant attack on the Morning Light was to be so ferocious and so intense that eventually the vessel had to capitulate. The experience was made even more unsettling because the Union vessel lacked sufficient defences, and because it was a sailing vessel and it was dead calm, they had no means to escape. Under galling fire of shot and shell and little means to repel the attack, the Morning Light crew were given orders to surrender. The vessel was left a riddled wreck and subsequently burnt. James and his black crewmates were immediately separated from their white comrades. At Sabine City, the southern city dwellers wanted to hang the Morning Light officers for being in charge of James and the other black crew. It must have been a petrifying experience for James, and for 2 days a mob surrounded the jail and tried to lynch the Union prisoners. Sheriff Lanham, in despair, threw the keys through the cell windows and told the prisoners to do what they could to fend for themselves. Their immediate fate thereafter has been lost to history in terms of the mob outside, but James and the Morning Light's crew were eventually removed to relative safety away from the jail. Thereafter, it marked 2.5 years of hell as a prisoner of war, put to work building defences in Galveston. Now, life for Union prisoners, regardless of skin colour, was a really awful experience anyway. However, we must still consider how it must have been to be a young black enlisted man whose freedom had been taken away. The colour of their skin meant further cruel treatment and hard labour, shut in from all the world at the mercy of their Confederate captors. There was little chance for parole, as it had to be like for like, and there were few Confederate mariners to swap with white Union sailors. So other than trying to escape, which was nigh on impossible in the unforgiving Texas landscape, James had zero opportunities for emancipation from his hellish experience. Now, according to his pension file, James explained that he was confined in Houston for about several months and then at Galveston. During his incarceration, he suffered a hernia through lifting heavy weights. He did not experience any empathy from the Confederate overseer and was forced to work on threat of death if he did not comply. His two friends, William L.G. Smith and James Redan, came to his assistance. Writing to the Pensions Bureau, James recalled his experience, and I quote, "One of my comrades, named William L.G. Smith was working with me at the time I sustained the injury, and he assisted me in putting me in an old wagon in which I was conveyed to our quarters in the old Tremont House building. During the time the so-called Confederates compelled us to work on their fort, and the place I received the injury was in Galveston, Texas. During the night in their Galveston prison, James recalled how William L.G. Smith helped him, and I quote, "He administered to me my wants as much as was possible for him, and it was at the earnest solicitation of said Smith that I was not separated entirely from my comrades. It was through the kindness of this Mr. William L.G. Smith that I was able to get about again, as he assisted in many ways, giving me the medicine the doctor prescribed and applying each application. I laid on the bare floor in the old Tremont House building at Galveston, Texas, the place where we were compelled so hard to labour, and the place where I sustained the injury for 6 long, weary weeks, unable to help myself part of the time. One afternoon, the overseer under which we were working on the fort came in the quarters when I was lying alone. He procured a large strap and half a teascup of castor oil, jerked me on my feet, and told me if I did not drink the contents of the cup, he would kill me. After I drank the contents of the cup, he pulled and dragged me a quarter of a mile to where my comrades were loading a boat with railroad iron. 4 men at a car with 4-foot sticks to assist in carrying. When we reached there, the overseer told me if I did not work, he would kill me on the spot. One of my comrades, James Redden, pled to this overseer for me with tears in his eyes, begging him to spare me as I was unable to work, but that fiend compelled me to work. My comrade, James Redden, nearly killed himself that afternoon trying to shield me as I was put to work with him. We had a hand spoke 4 foot long to carry the railroad iron with, and when we started with a rail, he placed a rail next to his hand and thereby took and carried the entire load. That shielded me and saved me from getting a terrible beating, such as was administered to some of my comrades. With the flat part of a handsaw, my comrades Smith and Redden took me to the quarters that night. Next morning I was unable to rise. They sent for the doctor. He gave me liniment to rub the parts and some medicine to take. A few days thereafter, they detailed some of our number to be sent to Matagorda, Texas. I was included in that number. I can't describe to you my sufferings while I was being transported from Columbia to Matagorda in an old lumber wagon without bedding. Arriving at Matagorda, we were placed on a rebel boat called Cara and carried Confederate cotton from Matagorda, Texas to Corpus Christi, Texas. James' sufferings continued until June 1865. Whilst his white comrades had already been paroled some months earlier, the colour of his skin dictated that he would still spend time incarcerated in Texas. He managed to escape, and when he was freed, despite the war ending two months earlier, he went north and he became a hairdresser and wig maker. In 1869 he opened a shop in Janesville, Wisconsin, offering wigs, hairpieces and toupees to men and women. In 1877 he moved his business to Green Bay until June of 1884, when he'd moved his entire operation to Chicago. He continued his business there until 1900, and he was clearly an industrious businessman, but the hustle and bustle of family life eluded him. He never had children, nor did he ever marry. And as has already been said, James, for reasons unknown, he arrived in London in about 1907, found himself amongst other veterans, many of who were living in poverty and trying to obtain their federal pensions. He lived in a place called Earlsfield, which is a borough in South London, and it's about 7 miles from Bermondsey, where the London branch first gathered. James's presence at the historic gathering in September 1910 was noted in several newspapers of the time, and I quote, "Amongst the veterans is one coloured man, James H. Cleggett, who has the distinction of having been kept a prisoner for 2.5 years. He is greatly respected by his brother veterans for his wonderful command of English and for his knowledge of consular red tape. He has the details of United States Pension Office at his fingertips." James was a significant individual in the story of the London branch. He was present with his comrades when he met Pershing's khaki-clad doughboys at the Eagle Hut YMCA in 1917. And there was a photograph of him and all the other veterans stood on the steps of the YMCA, proudly waving the Stars and Stripes flag. And whilst I can't hold it to you right now, they stood beneath that banner. You darn Americans. Right, that's thrown me all out. Bear with me. Okay. Yeah, so he stood on the steps of the YMCA proudly waving, and there is a picture here of James. And again, I've got some pictures of James over the back, which I'm glad to share with you. In 1919, James attended a place called Brookwood Cemetery, and sadly he ended up laying a wreath at the graves of the young Americans who'd served in World War I. By 1919, James's health was deteriorating, and in consequence, the Honourable Secretary of the London branch, who was called Arthur William Fraser Smith, who'd served in the 80th New York Infantry and been wounded at Petersburg, wrote to the US Consulate in London. And he says, "Dear Sir, Vice Consul Westacott desires me to write to you particulars of J.H. Cleggett, a coloured man and a Civil War veteran who has resided in London 12 years. He is 75 years of age and during the last 2 years has developed hallucinations, a brain trouble, which has become serious lately, having no relatives in England and believed alone." Now, with no family other than his civil comrades to look after him, James was cared for briefly, but in 1921 he returned to the United States. He lived in Boston briefly, and then he took up residence in Chicago. He lived in an apartment at 600 East 51st Street, the apartment of a friend, 45-year-old widow Etta Shoecraft. On June 6, 1929, James' cancer worsened and he was unable to walk. He was taken to Edward Hines Junior Hospital, Broadview, where he remained bedbound until his death on June 12th. He died aged 86 years of age, and I want to say for the record, he's the last known survivor of the USS Morning Light and lost to history, but he was one of only 12 remaining London branch veterans left. Of course, by that stage, they never knew what had happened to him. It's also unlikely that anyone recognised the significance of his passing as the USS Morning Light's last survivor. 5 days after his passing, James was buried where we stand, and for nearly 100 years he's lain in an unmarked grave, his head incredible story lost to history. Today that has changed because of the amazing efforts of so many people that have stood here today. James has no known family, and yet I feel a sense of kinship with him and each person who is here today as we share this act of remembrance, and a long overdue act as well. James, we who are stood here are testament to the fact that your endeavours have not been forgotten, nor has your service been overlooked or ignored. It is acknowledged because of the official burial marker erected here. Each person present today illustrates the evidence of a sense of duty and desire to remember you. James, on behalf of 65 descendants of your former comrades in the London branch, I would like to conclude my part of this eulogy by saying thank you for your service. I will never forget you.
Thank you very much. That was more than 5 minutes.
Sorry.
Speaking of more than 5 minutes, our next speaker, Bobby Welch, is the current department commander of Illinois of the Sons of Union Veterans of the Civil War. He's the past commander of the department of the VFW, and there's probably more to come in the future.
Thank you. So, I don't know how I'm going to follow that up, other than to accept my award for being the shortest speaker today. Seriously though, thank you very much, Camp 2, for all this work you've done, for inviting me. Thank you all for being here today. To my comrades in 311, thank you very much. To my comrades on the firing line from my post, 2791, thank you very much. And now I'm done except for one thing. Gina, can you stand up here for a minute? Certificate of Commendation. Oh, this one, you can stand right next to me. Presented to Gina Dunham for meritorious and distinguished service in perpetuating the memory of the Grand Army of the Republic and the men who served the Union from 1861 to 1865. In witness whereof we have hereunto set our hands and affixed the seal of the Sons of Union Veterans of the Civil War this 23rd day of June in the year of our Lord, 2024. Signed, Bobby Welch, Department Commander, Don Sherman, Department Secretary.
Thank you very much.
I'll accept that award now.
Okay, now we're going to start wrapping this up a little bit. We're going to hear from the past Commander-in-Chief of the Sons of Union Veterans of the Civil War, Steve Michaels.
Thank you and good afternoon. On behalf of Peter Bristow, the Commander-in-Chief of the Sons of Union Veterans of the Civil War, thank you for being here. It's an honor and a privilege to speak with you on this special occasion. I've been asked to talk about the Grand Army of the Republic and the Sons of Union Veterans of the Civil War. And I dare say that there's probably some of you here that before today had never heard of the Sons of Union Veterans of the Civil War or the Grand Army of the Republic. But we'll change that. Shortly after the Civil War, the Grand Army of the Republic was established as a fraternal organization of Union veterans to preserve the memory and to take the lead in protecting the rights of the survivors. The GAR was only about 12 years old when various posts across the country began forming cadet corps. In 1881, a comrade in Pennsylvania formed a descendant organization, the Sons of Veterans USA, which went nationwide. And this became the Sons of Union Veterans of the Civil War that we know today. The other organizations would eventually consolidate. Both the Grand Army and the Sons were works in progress. Each developed their own identities, and by the 1890s, relations became increasingly cordial and joint meetings were often held. In fact, in 1895, there were over 750 Grand Army comrades who also belonged to the Sons of Union Veterans. Along with the Sons, the Women's Relief Corps, the Ladies of the Grand Army of the Republic, the Daughters of Union Veterans of the Civil War, and the auxiliary to the Sons of Union Veterans of the Civil War formed what we know as the Allied Orders of the GAR. They added their support to congressional bills introduced by the Grand Army for Union veterans' appointment and retention in public service. The Sons enthusiastically followed the Grand Army's crusade for patriotism. In 1888, the Sons' national headquarters instructed all camps to conduct ceremonies on Lincoln's birthday. Celebration of the day soon became an annual custom. The Sons also endorsed the GAR's efforts and appointed a committee to help suppress blacklisted books, which included disloyal histories, minimizing the South's crime and the prestige of Union veterans. The Sons of Veterans had expanded rapidly under the guidance of the GAR's Commander-in-Chief and their National Tribune publisher. In the 1890s, the Sons' membership peaked at more than 54,000 members nationwide. The Grand Army of the Republic had more than 409,000 members. This was only about 40% of the Union veteran population. Sadly, mortality caught up with the Grand Army of the Republic in the 20th century. At the same time, economic depressions, several wars, societal changes, technological distractions, and historical distance from the Civil War took their toll on the Sons membership. When James Claggett returned from London in about 1921, both the GAR and the Sons were in decline. Chicago's over 40 GAR posts had dropped to less than half that number. The city once boasted 13 Sons chapters, which we call camps, and now only 3 were left. Chicago's Camp Number 1, General George A. Custer Camp Number 6, and Old Glory Camp Number 165. Most Sons camps did not survive the Great Depression, and those that did once proudly accomplished, took over the duties that were once proudly accomplished by the Grand Army. These were Memorial Day observances, presentation in schools, historic preservation, and veterans relief. They created the Lincoln Tomb Ceremony, which is held annually to this day in Springfield, Illinois. They also created Remembrance Day, held each November in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, which was kicked off when the auxiliary to the Sons erected a statue there in memory of the Grand Army of the Republic. Later, this Illinois department added a ceremony honoring GAR founder Dr. Benjamin Franklin Stevenson at his gravesite in Petersburg, Illinois, and it's continuing to develop that site. With the death of the last Union veteran in 1956, the torch passed to all Americans, not just the Allied orders, tasking each of us with remembering veterans on Memorial Day, presenting complete and correct American history to our children, and looking after those who are less fortunate, especially the defenders of our nation. Let us each reaffirm that we will show appreciation for this heritage and responsibility that has been passed to us by preserving it for ourselves and for future generations. Thank you for taking time to reflect with me this afternoon. God bless our veterans, and God bless America. And now we will proceed with the headstone dedication ceremony. Brothers, will you please come forward? About midway down. Brother Claggett, we lay you down to rest. We loved you here, and our remembrance of you shall be pleasant. And while we mourn your loss, we strive to emulate your virtues. Brothers, what attitude should we always maintain toward the memory of our departed brothers? The faults of our brothers we write upon the sand, and his virtues upon the tablets of love and memory.
All brothers, present arms.
We will now have the rifle salute.
Order, arms.
Please join me in singing the Battle Hymn of the Republic. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. He has loosed his fateful lightning of his terrible swift sword. His death is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on.
Thank you. We also have some visitors from Wisconsin that would like to place a wreath. Michigan. Sorry, both north.
Miss Denham.
Well, the weather held off, the rain, and especially the cicadas. Thank you all for joining us today, and thank you for all the service of our veterans.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lee.
We're tenting tonight on the old campground. Give us a song to cheer our weary hearts, a song of hope and friends we love so dear. Many are the hearts that are weary